Hello children, today we are going to start with another topic from our hornbill, The Silk Road by Nick Middleton. The story is written by Nick Middleton. The chapter is about the narrator's journey from slopes of Rao to Mount Kailash to complete the Kora. To bid him farewell, Lamo gave him a long-sleeved sheepskin coat. He hired the Staton car for his journey and took Daniel along with him to escort him to Darkin. Now this is in short I told you. We'll see in brief ahead. Firstly, I will give you the introduction about the author Nick Middleton. He is a Royal Geographical Society award-winning writer and the author of travelogues. The relevance of the chapter title, that is Silk Road, how it's important to this. The Silk Road, it refers to the network of overland routes linking Europe with Asia. This has been the trade route of the Europeans since ancient times. Almost every transaction imaginable has occurred along its main paths over the centuries. The traders traveled it, buying and selling various items, including silk and spices from China and wool, gold, silver and precious materials from Rome. The traders traveled along it, buying and selling various items, including silk and spices from China, as I told you earlier. Its influences carried over to Korea and Japan. These exchanges were important or significant for the development of the great civilizations of ancient Egypt, China, Persia, India. It also helped to lay the foundation of our modern world. It has infused new life into mighty empires. It is an important route on which many adventurers have walked since ages. Traveling on the Silk Road is one of the most pleasant journeys. The author records the challenges and hardships that he faced in the Silk Road region in his travelogue. He follows the footsteps of Alexander the Great and Marco Polo overland from China to the edge of Europe. This account of the Silk Road, with its contrast and exotic detail, certainly describes the challenges and hardships the Middleton faced. Hence it is titled as Silk Road. The reader finds it refreshing to travel across such vast tracts and expanse of the natural world that remain largely untamed. It is the first-hand experience that he had with his friends Staton and Daniel. Now, point by point, I will explain the phases of this particular chapter like a story. In between, I have put forward the questions, which is very important from the exam point of view. Now, from the beginning, if we see, the author was leaving Ravu and heading towards Mount Kailash to complete the Kora, means the pilgrim. Kora is the pilgrim. Kora, that means taking a round. Ducking back means to move somewhere very quickly. So these are the meanings which you can refer from the text and write it with a pencil over there. So over there, the friends who are there, protagonists or the characters who are there, they wanted to go to Mount Kailash to complete the Kora. He hired Staton to drive him up to Mount Kailash. As a farewell gift, Lamo gave him a long-sleeved, Lamo is a girl from where they were staying, gave him a long-sleeved sheepskin coat. He took Daniel as his companion till Darkin. He was going along with his friends Daniel and Staton. Before leaving this place, Lamo gave him a farewell gift, as I told you earlier. It was cold, so she felt that he should or ought to get some warmer clothes. She gave him a long-sleeved sheepskin coat. Their next destination was Mount Kailash. Staton knew a short route that would take them southwest almost directly towards Mount Kailash. Even though there were several fairly high mountain passes on this route, the journey would be smooth if there was no snow. Nibbling, that means taking small bites of something, and arid means dry. Bounding means walking or running with big steps. Void means nothingness or empty space. Briefly, now the further question I would point is, briefly describe the narrator's journey from Rao to Mount Kailash. From the gently rising and the falling hills of Rao, the shortcut took them across vast open plains, dry grazing land that had nothing in it except for a few gazelles. As they moved further, the plain became more stony and less grassy. They saw a big herd of wild ass. Kiang a wild ass found in Tibet and Mongolia. Paul, it is a dark cloud of smoke, dust, etc. Satan pointed towards a certain of curtain of dust and said that some Kyang were approaching. En masse means in a group or all together. Manuous means movement requiring skill and care. So when they drew near, they saw the herd galloping all together. Initially, they saw the curtain of the dust coming approach towards him, but it was the herd which was galloping all together. Predetermined, fixed, and plumes means cloud of dust billowed into the crisp, clean air. What did the narrator notice about the Drogbas? Solitary means lone. The Rogbas means nomads or the shepherds. Tending means caring or nurturing. As they passed by the hills, they saw the lone shepherds or the Rogbas looking after their flocks. Well-wrapped men and women would sometimes pause and stare at their car, and sometimes wave at them as they passed. Evasive means vague or unclear. Veering means a sudden motion swerve. When the track took them close to the animals, the sheep ran away from the speeding vehicle. Now, why were the Tibetan Mastiff popular in China's imperial courts? First of all, pitched means placed at a predetermined position at a specified time and place. The narrator and his friends passed the nomad tents that were standing in the isolation. Mastiffs means these are powerful, and deep means chested dogs used chiefly as watchdogs. Hence, generally, some Tibetan Mastiffs were placed outside as guards. They would tilt their huge heads and observe the visitors from the distance. That means these are the huge chested, muscular dogs, gigantic dogs, which are normally sitting there on the passerby road to observe the movers. When anyone came closer, they would explode into action by speeding directly towards them as fast as a bullet from a gun. Shaggy means rough with long thick hair or fur. These dogs had the thick fur and were as black as the darkest night. Massive means very big. They barked dangerously with their huge jaws. Mostly they wore bright red collars around their necks. Serve means to stray or turn sharply. They were completely fearless of the adventurer's vehicle and ran straight into their path, due to which Satan had to apply brakes and had made the vehicle swerve. Swerve, I told you, to stay or to turn sharply. Easing off means to gradually stop. The dog would chase them for 100 meters or so before stopping gradually and making sure that the outsiders were off the property. Ferocious means wild and brutal. Imperial means very grand or fine. Tribute, it is an acknowledgement of gratitude or respect. It is due to these qualities that ferocious Tibetan Mastiff became popular in China's grand and royal courts as hunting dogs. They had been brought from Tibet in the ancient times along the Silk Road as a mark of respect. Now, how did Satan maneuver across the first patch of snow? Now we are going to see about the obstacles, how they intervened or how they hurdled in their way to Kailash. The travelers could now see snow-capped mountains gathering on the horizon. Now, how did Satan maneuver across? Clogged means an obstructed flow or block. Glinting is sparkling. They entered a valley where the river was wide and mostly blocked with ice. It was bright white and sparkling in the sunshine. Trail, it is to leave a mark of the mark left by the river water very close to its bank. And twisting means bending. Meanders, these are the crook course or path. It was bending steeply along with a crooked path as it is gradually moved higher up. The turns became sharper and the ride was bumpier now. Satan was now driving the car in the third gear as they continued to climb. Laboring means requiring more effort. Daubed means covered. The track was now away from the icy river. It became more difficult to climb as it moved into steeper slopes that had big rocks coated with patches of bright orange lichen. What was the impact of the altitude on the narrator? Means more they reached the top higher and higher. What was the impact then? Under the rocks, large and dense pieces of snow clung on in the shade. The author felt the presence building up in his ears, so he held his nose and cleared them. They struggled around another tight band when Satan stopped around the door and jumped out of his seat. Daniel too exited the vehicle, letting in a breath of cold air as he did so. Swath means rolls like bandages. Petered out means dwindled or diminished to nothing. A roll of white snow lay across the track in front of them, stretching for probably 15 meters before it diminished to nothing and the dirt trail reappeared. The snow continued falling on the either side of them, smoothing the abrupt bank on the upslope side. The bank was too steep for their vehicle to climb, so there was no way round the snow patch. Encrusted means covered with, certain, make sure, and sturdy is strong. The narrator joined Daniel, and at time Satan on the snow and began to slither and slide forward, stamping his foot from the time to time to make sure how strong it was. Now, what happened to the sudden and unexpected fall of the snow? What did they do about it? The sudden and unexpected fall of the snow started blocking their way. It was too steep for their vehicle to climb. Both the author and the Daniel got out of the car to lessen the load for Satan to drive it safely, taking sharp bends. They were at 5,210 meters above the sea level. Even though the snow was not very deep, the icy top layer was very dangerous because it could make the car slip off the road and turn over. Then Satan grabbed handfuls of dirt and flung them across the frozen surface. The others joined him too, and when the snow was spread with soil, Daniel and Nick stayed out of the vehicle to lighten it so that it could climb the slope easily. It was easy to drive over the dirty snow, so he moved without much difficulty. Later, they had to stop due to another blockage. Satan decided to drive round the snow and somehow managed to steer past the steep slope studded with huge rocks. Okay, now lurching means moving abruptly and unsteadily. His car was moving unsteadily over obstacle, crossing hairpin bands and moving further up where the snow had not drifted. Nick checked his watch again as they continued traveling in the bright sunshine. By the time they crossed 5,400 meters, the narrator head began to throb very horribly. That means he was having a sudden headache, very severe. They finally reached the top of the pass at 5,515 meters. Cairn means a mound of rough stones. Festooned means decorated. It was marked by the huge mound of rocks decorated with the white silk scarves and worn-out prayer flags. They took a turn round the cairn in the traditional way. Then Satan checked the tires of his vehicle. He stopped at the petrol tank and partially unscrewed the top, which gave a loud hiss because the lower atmospheric pressure made the fuel expand. It seemed to be dangerous, and Satan laughed and said, "No smoking." Carried means move with a speed and whizzed. Nick's headache cleared as they sped down the other side of the pass. They stopped for a lunch of hot noodles inside a long canvas tent. Poked means covered or disfigured. Salt flats means areas of flat land covered with the layers of salt. Okay, normally these are saline and salty, brackish. Why is the plateau covered with layers of salt? Describe the activity going on. The plateau is covered with the layers of salt and salty lakes. Vestiges means remnants or of the leftovers of the waste, remains of something that no longer exists. They are the remains of Tethys Ocean, which exist at the border of Tibet before the great continental collision that lifted it skyward, that led to the creation of the Himalayas. Border of the Tibet that led to the Himalayas. Trudged means to walk slowly with heavy steps due to exhaustion or harsh conditions. There was a lot of activity as men with pickaxes and shovels walked in their long sheepskin coats and boots covered with salt. All wore sunglasses to save themselves from the glare of the blue trucks emerging from the White Lake side, which was filled with the piles of salt. All wore sunglasses to save themselves from the glare of blue trucks emerging from the White Lake. Now, what ordeals did they face as they entered? Now, there was a village or the town wherein they had to enter. So, what were the things that they had observed? By late afternoon, they had reached the small town of Hor. They were traveling back on the main east-west highway that followed the old trade route from Lhasa to Kashmir. Daniel found a ride in a truck, so Satan and Nick bade him farewell. Now Daniel, he left Satan and Nick. Now two only left. They were outside a tire repair shop at the time. Quick succession, one after the another. They had suffered two punctures, one after the other, on their drive down from the Salt Lake. Satan was eager to get them repaired because he didn't have any more spare wheels. Satan was, besides, the second tire that he had changed had been replaced by one that was as smooth as the author's bald head. So moving ahead in the town Hor, he visited a particular cafe. There he met Norbu, which was small, dark and west with a long metal stove. The walls and the ceiling were twisted in the multicolored plastic sheets of different color stripe. It was made into a firm and big shopping bags which were sold over China and in many countries of Asia and Europe. Plastics were China's successful export along the Silk Road. The cafe in Hor, which we are talking about, had a single window besides which I had taken up the position so he could see the pages of his notebook. We are talking about the Norbu. He also bought a novel with him to help the pass the time. Norbu saw his book, author's book, which when he came across and asked with a gesture if he could sit opposite him at his rickety table. So he inquired whether he is English. The narrator asked Norbu that whether he is English after he ordered tea. He told him that as we struck up a conversation, he didn't think he was from those parts because he was wearing a wind cheater and metal rimmed spectacles of a Western style. He was a Tibetan, he told me, but worked in Beijing at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences and the Institute of Ethnic Literature. I assumed he was on the same sort of field work. Yes and no, he said. I have come to do the Kora. My heart jumped. Norbu had been writing academic papers about Kailash Kora and its importance in the various works of Buddhist literature for many years. He told me, but he had never actually done it himself. That cafe had only one window, which he would take so that he could see his notebook clearly, and he would bring a novel with him to pass the time. Norbu once saw his book and asked him if he could sit opposite to him. Okay, now when the time came for him to tell him what brought him to darken, his eyes lit up. Two academics who have escaped from the library, perhaps the positive thinking strategy was working after all. His initial relief at meeting Norbu, means the narrator's relief after meeting Norbu, who was also staying in the guest house, was tempered by the realization that it was almost he was there on the pilgrimage. Norbu kept on telling the narrator how fat he was and how hard it was going on to be. Very high up, he kept on reminding him it's so tiresome to walk. He wasn't really a practicing Buddhist. Although I had originally envisaged making the track in the company of believers on reflection, I decided that perhaps Norbu would turn out to be ideal companion. He suggested that they should hire some yaks to carry on the luggage, which I interpreted as a good sign. Now, since he was very fat, Norbu, so he said that can't we hire some yaks to carry our luggage down up? And he is feeling very tired up to go, tiresome to walk. And he had no intention of protesting himself all round the mountain. Not possible, he said, collapsing across the table in the hysterical laughter. It wasn't his style, and anyway his tummy was too big. Norbu was excited when he got to know why that character was at Darken. He said that it could be a team where the two academics who escaped from the library. The protagonist believed his positive thinking strategy, it was working. Norbu was also staying at the guest house just like him, and Norbu was as ill-equipped like him. Norbu kept telling him that he was too dull, boring and tired to walk, and he was very fat. Originally, the protagonist predicted that the track would be a good company of any deep believer, but he found Norbu to be an ideal partner. They decided to hire some yaks to carry their luggage and had no intention of lying down flat all over the mountain. Norbu finally said that it is not possible for him to collapse across the table. So this was the journey, okay, wherein the two Norbu and the narrator, they both started to the Mount Kailash. So here the story ends. Thank you, children. If you have any doubts, go through the chapter, rewind the video again and again. Video mentions clearly the difficult meanings as well. Thank you.